Our economy is stronger than the American economy in the medium term. And we are going to be stronger than the American economy, particularly if the U.S. government continues to pursue these.
Shifting U.S. foreign policy is compelling Canada and Europe to potentially look elsewhere for purchases of high-tech weaponry, like the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter.
It's not just Canada, right? Some other countries are also reviewing their contracts to buy these very expensive fighter jets from the U.S. over trade concerns.
Canada has just delivered a blow no one in Washington saw coming. It walked away from America's flagship fighter jet program. The full commitment for 88 F-35s worth nearly $13 billion has been slashed down to just 16 aircraft, leaving the rest of the order open to Europe and local manufacturers. This decision shatters a long-standing assumption inside NATO that allies will always default to buying American hardware, not because of cost or performance alone, but because of the political bond it represents. If Canada can break that pattern, what does it mean for the future of Western security? The consequences go far beyond a contract dispute. Entire communities in Texas, Missouri, and Washington, home to America's defense industry, now face the prospect of layoffs and shuttered production lines. Jobs that once felt untouchable suddenly look precarious. And the idea of U.S. defense dominance no longer seems guaranteed. And here lies the deeper danger: weapons are no longer just technical assets. They've become instruments of political leverage and trade retaliation. If even the closest friends of the United States are willing to turn their back, how many others might be preparing to do the same? Before we dive in, tap that like button. It tells YouTube this content matters. And the shock doesn't end with the symbolism of a lost ally. Economically, the fallout cuts straight into the backbone of America's defense industry. The F-35 program alone supports more than 254,000 jobs across the country. With Canada stepping back and Portugal now signaling the same, over 75,000 of those jobs could be swept away both directly on the assembly lines and indirectly across the vast supply chains that feed them. For Lockheed Martin, the stakes are enormous. In 2024, the company posted $71 billion in revenue, nearly a third of which came from the F-35. That stream is no longer secure. Canceled orders from just two allies could erase as much as $19 billion in future business, sending shockwaves from Wall Street investors to local factories. The pain won't be evenly distributed. States like Texas, Georgia, and California, the very heartlands of American defense production, now face the specter of mass layoffs and economic contraction. For workers who once believed the defense sector was immune to downturns, the ground is shifting beneath their feet. If even the most secure contracts can collapse overnight, what does that say about the stability of the entire defense economy? If you've made it this far, consider subscribing. It's how we keep uncovering what others won't say. Yet, beneath the numbers lies a truth far more unsettling. This was never just about aircraft performance or cost efficiency. Canada wasn't only purchasing jets, it was investing in a relationship, and that trust has now been broken. Prime Minister Mark Carney ordered a review of the deal after Donald Trump threatened new tariffs and went so far as to mock Canada as the 51st state. For Ottawa, the message was unmistakable. Defense ties with Washington had become too risky to depend on. As defense analyst Winslow T. Wheeler once put it, you're not just buying an airplane, you're buying a relationship with the United States. But what happens when that relationship itself becomes a liability? Other allies are quietly asking the same question. If billions in defense investments can be jeopardized by a sudden change in mood at the White House, then every contract carries political risk. Even former Royal Canadian Air Force Lieutenant General Avon Blondin, once a staunch supporter of the F-35, now concedes that America has grown too unreliable to count on. But the rupture isn't only financial or political. It exposes a far deeper vulnerability. Canada's decision has spotlighted a deadly flaw in the F-35 program, America's near-total control over its operations. Every jet is bound to the United States through software updates, spare parts, and system upgrades. A single delay from Washington could leave an entire fleet grounded, no matter whose flag is painted on the tail. Even the components stored in Canadian bases remain U.S. property, a strategic chain that no ally can cut without permission, and the dependency doesn't end with maintenance. Targeting systems, mission data, and electronic warfare capabilities are all tethered to American infrastructure. Allies are discovering that in buying the F-35, they aren't just purchasing aircraft, they're effectively outsourcing their operational sovereignty. Alan Williams, Canada's former head of defense procurement, has warned bluntly, the F-35 is less a fifth-generation weapon than a strategic vulnerability in disguise. And where Washington sees a loss, Europe sees an opening. The void left by Canada's retreat from the F-35 is not disappearing. It is being recast as a goldmine for European defense industries. Sweden's Saab has already put forward a bold proposal, not just selling Gripen fighters but assembling and maintaining them directly on Canadian soil. Such a move would anchor European industry inside North America itself, a foothold that once seemed unthinkable. Francis Dassault and the Eurofighter Consortium have also accelerated negotiations, offering wider industrial partnerships designed to lure Ottawa into a long-term alliance. This isn't simply about jets, it's about embedding European defense capacity into Canada's economy and supply chains. As David Jordan of King's College London argues, this moment could mark a turning point, the beginning of Europe's drive toward full defense autonomy within the next decade. And the political groundwork is already being laid. Since March 2025, Canada and the European Union have opened direct defense talks with one clear objective: reducing dependence on the United States. Still, breaking away from America comes at a steep and complicated price. For Canada, there is no clean cut. Having already poured billions into the F-35 program, shifting course now means operating in two worlds at once, maintaining the U.S. system while building capacity for an alternative. That duplication alone threatens to stretch budgets and timelines far beyond what policymakers initially imagined. The hidden costs are substantial. Pilots must be retrained on new cockpits and tactics. Mechanics must learn entirely different maintenance routines, and supply depots must stock parts for two incompatible aircraft families. Each of these requirements multiplies expenses, consuming not only money but also years of preparation before a single squadron is fully combat ready. The scale of the problem is daunting. The F-35 is embedded in a global ecosystem. Spare parts delivered through centralized hubs, software updated across a secure international network, and mission planning built into tightly controlled digital systems. No European platform can replicate this reach immediately. For Ottawa, unwinding from that web is not just about canceling contracts. It is about re-engineering the backbone of its air force. And technology itself complicates the escape. Despite all the criticisms, the F-35 remains the only fifth-generation aircraft available off the shelf. Its stealth features, advanced sensors, and electronic warfare capabilities provide an advantage that no European manufacturer has fully matched yet. Abandoning it outright could leave Canada with a short-term gap in deterrence, especially as global threats continue to rise. Canadian leaders understand that the transition will demand sacrifice, higher costs, longer timelines, and temporary vulnerability. Yet they see these burdens as the price of freedom from dependence. In their calculation, sovereignty is worth more than convenience. NATO faces fragmentation to Ottawa. Paying now may prevent paying far more later should Washington once again turn a political quarrel into a strategic liability. What started as a single canceled contract has now grown into a tremor, shaking the very foundation of Western security. NATO, built on the principle of interoperability and collective strength, faces a new and destabilizing challenge. For decades, shared platforms like the F-16 and F-35 guaranteed that allies could train together, exchange data seamlessly, and fight as one. That uniformity is now unraveling. The risk is not merely technical, it is strategic. If allies fly aircraft from different manufacturers, each with its own training pipelines, maintenance networks, and weapon systems, the alliance becomes a patchwork of mismatched capabilities. The margin of error in joint operations widens. Missions that once relied on instant coordination could be slowed by fractured logistics and incompatible technology. In a world where reaction time defines survival, that is a vulnerability NATO cannot afford. A multipolar defense market rises. Canada's choice has also transformed procurement into precedent. Defense contracts were once seen as expressions of military necessity. Now they double as instruments of political leverage. A fighter jet order can be suspended, redirected, or canceled, not because of battlefield performance, but because of trade disputes, tariff threats, or diplomatic slights. Washington may still produce the world's most advanced aircraft, but its control over the market is no longer absolute. Other capitals are watching with caution. Spain has openly questioned whether the F-35 suits its long-term strategy. while India continues to explore alternatives from France and Russia rather than tie its future to a program perceived as politically volatile. Each hesitation chips away at the once unchallenged dominance of American arms exports. The broader picture is sobering. A multipolar defense market is taking shape. Europe, fueled by industrial ambition, is stepping up. Asia from India to South Korea is building its own next-generation fighters. Even smaller nations are pooling resources to create indigenous systems rather than remain bound to American supply chains. The U.S. now faces competition not from one rival but from an entire constellation of emerging defense players. For NATO, the implications run deeper than hardware. The alliance was designed to function as a united front, yet its unity rests on trust that members will align not only politically, but militarily. Fragmented fleets, competing suppliers, and divergent doctrines all signal a drift away from that model. The crack may appear technical today, but strategically it points to an alliance less cohesive, less predictable, and ultimately less resilient in the face of future crisis. When even America's closest ally dares to turn away, the signal could not be clearer. Washington is losing its most valuable currency, trust. This isn't simply an economic setback, it is a collapse of credibility, the very factor that once made the United States the unquestioned protector of the free world. Analysts already describe this as the opening act of a multipolar security era, one where Europe and Asia reclaim slices of influence once concentrated in Washington's hands. The shift is no longer hypothetical, it is unfolding in real time. If Canada can make this break, who might follow Germany, Japan, Saudi Arabia? The list of potential defectors grows by the day, and each departure would erode not just America's arms sales, but its global authority. The final question hangs heavy. Can the U.S. still claim to be the world's defense leader when even its closest friends are seeking escape routes from its embrace? And that's where we leave you with a choice to consider. Is this just a temporary rift or the beginning of a permanent unraveling of U.S. dominance? What happens when trust once broken cannot be bought back with contracts or promises? Thanks for watching, and if this resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Every click fuels the truth.